Alrighty, everybody, welcome. My name is Ilya from TaxDome, and today we're doing a webinar on how you can improve your intake using conditional organizers. We've had organizers for some time now, but in the last several months, we've introduced some awesome new features, which we're going to go in depth in this webinar. So let's get started. The first thing is we want to cover is what are organizers? Sometimes they're known as forms. There's many different terms that different systems use, but we'll kind of talk about that at first. Then we're going to cover the difference between a regular organizer and a conditional organizer. So what's the benefit of that? And we'll go deep into that because that's really the crux of this webinar. Then we're going to talk about how you can create these conditions under which certain questions will be shown or not shown to your clients based off of their answers. Really, this is the flexibility that you guys are looking for that we're going to show you how to do. We're going to talk about how you can implement this into your existing organizers. You don't have to just start from scratch. You can take your existing organizers and add this functionality on top of it. And then finally, we're going to talk about how you can add automation and have these organizers be sent either manually or through automated actions. And finally, we're going to cover Q&A as well. So the first thing we want to talk about is, again, what is an organizer? So very simply, it's simply a way for you to obtain information from your clients. You've already used something like this long before TaxDome or in any business, really. There's certain information that your clients have, you need to get from them. And organizers are a way to do that. Sometimes they're known as forms, such as Google Forms, or the systems such as Cognito or Typeform. There's entire businesses that are built upon creating a platform for you to obtain information from your clients. But using TaxDome, you don't need a separate system. It's already included in your client portal and integrated with everything else. Importantly, it is mobile friendly. When you send your clients an organizer, then they're able to complete it both on desktop or on their mobile phone. And they never have to worry about saving their information. They don't have to. It automatically auto saves. So every answer that your client just puts in, it's going to constantly update every single time that they do it. So you never really have to worry about losing any of the data that they put in. Okay. Next is, again, it's very similar to Google Forms if you guys have ever completed one of those, but the main benefit is that this is fully integrated with your portal, with the rest of your workflow automation, and with your documents. So one of the question types that you can ask is a file upload. So if your client clicks that, it's going to prompt them to upload a file in response to your questions. So if you say, hey, we need your incorporation documents, or we need your 1099, they simply click the button and that document is automatically placed into their documents and also within the organizer. To give you the example, if you were using Google Forms, they would have to upload it somewhere and then you'd have to go manually save it and move it. Here, it's all fully integrated. Next is that this is fully customizable. So you'll see some of the examples on the right. These are just some of the examples that you can use, whether it's a tax client, you need a new client information, whether it's a returning client, you can use that for the same exact way. Whether you have a new business, you need to get some key information of key stakeholders, incorporation information, and so forth. You can use this for due diligence inside of your firm for some of the IRS requirements. You can go on and on and on, but really there's many different tools that you can use for this. And finally, there's an audit trail of all the answers. So at every point, you'll always be able to see who put in the answer. And actually, coming with that, we also, in the last couple of months, introduced the ability for you to edit the answers yourselves. So if you're doing an interview with a client, or they're in office, or you need to change one of the answers, maybe there's a typo in the birth date, for example, you can always modify that, and you'll see in the audit trail that you were the one that put it in and not the client. So for larger firms, you always have an audit trail of who put in the answers. Now, let's talk a little bit about conditions. What are conditions? In a regular organizer, you create a list of questions. First, we need your name, we need your address, whether you're married, and so forth. With a conditional organizers, you can create a dynamic version of that. So the end goal being that your client will only see the questions that are relevant to them. So to give you an analogy, if you were meeting with a client in person, when you find out that they're not married, you're not going to ask them about their spouse and ask them about their spouse's birthday. This is the same exact logic here, so that you can use this if-then logic that you would do during an interview, except instead of you doing it manually, it does it automatically for them. So your client completes the questions, and then you can create the logic based off of certain answers to ask follow-ups or to hide other follow-ups. You see the examples on the right. If you ask somebody, do you have children? If they say no, you're not going to ask them about all the information you need to know about their dependents. If someone is single, you're not going to ask them about their spouse. But you can also ask them, well, did your marital status change? This is just an example. And if they say, yes, it did, then you can say, okay, well, please let us know what happened. Did you get married? Were you divorced? Were you widowed? And then as another example, if they say divorced, you might want to know the date that they got divorced. So this consistent logic tree of if this, then that is really the beauty of conditions. And really the idea is to simulate the logic tree that you would have asking your clients in person, but the computer does it for you. The real goal here is to make it easy for your clients. That's really the big benefit here. First is you can reduce the amount of questions you can ask your clients. This is tremendous because you don't want to sit there for an hour-long interview when you only have 10 minutes of questions. So here you can do the exact same thing. And this allows you to go really, really, really in depth in your organizer. One of the biggest complaints if you don't have conditions is, well, I don't want to show my client 1,000 questions. But now you don't have to. You can have 1,000 questions, but your client will only see 60 of them or 30 or 10 or however many you want, depending on their answers. So you can go fully in depth, but your client will only have to answer the ones that are actually relevant to them. But if someone does have a certain situation, if someone does have cryptocurrency or someone does have a PPP loan, then you can ask that whole tree of questions that you need to know afterwards. And then you can also create conditions saying, well, you told me this, but then what about that? You can get really in depth and ask your clients all the questions you need, but without overloading them with something that they don't care about. The goal is that your client is going to see something that's super tailored to them and to their specific situation. The second benefit is without conditions, you needed to send additional organizers because you didn't want your clients to have too many questions. So for example, if somebody says, yes, they're self-employed, then I will send them a Schedule C organizer. Now you don't have to. You can have one all-encompassing organizer that when someone says, yes, I have a business, you can have an entire section open up asking them about that business. This allows you to have this kind of dovetails in the rest of the system because you're going to have fewer pipelines. So we've heard that sometimes people have a returning client pipeline and a new client pipeline. You don't need to do that anymore because you can have simply a question in the beginning of the organizer. Are you new or are you returning? And then the flow of questions, it can be completely different, all within the context of one organizer. At the same time, fewer automations for you to support. You're not going to have if this, then that. It's just, this is the organizer you get, and the organizer will have the logic within it completely. And because you're asking your clients fewer questions, you're going to increase the percentage that they're actually going to complete the organizer. The more targeted it is towards them, the more that they feel that this is specifically addressing their specific situation, the higher percentage chance that they're going to complete the organizer. How do you create these conditions? You create a question. Let's say, how did you find us? This is just an example. And then you can make conditions on that. So for example, if somebody says, found you through a referral, you can add additional question. Okay, well, who was the referral? A free text entry question after that you only show if somebody says, I found you through a referral. If I found you through Instagram, you might want to ask, okay, let me know your Instagram account. If I found you through an ad, which ad? Was it Google? Was it Facebook? And so forth. This is just an example, but it shows you kind of the logic tree that you can create for your clients to get the information that you need. So how do you do that? Create a question that has a finite set of answers. What does that mean? It can't be free text entry because that's not a finite set, but a radio button, a yes, no, or checkbox, which is coming really soon, then those are finite sets of answers. If it's one of those, then you could create conditions upon that. So the first, you see this little toggle conditions, toggle that on when you click the settings on a question, and then you add the conditions. So you see this little add, and in this you choose the question that you're going to add the condition on. Now you see where it says mode, you can either, that depends, if you have multiple questions in there, the mode is going to be any or all. So if someone says, I found you through a referral, or I found you through a friend, you might want to ask a question. If a mode was any, then if it's this and that, then I'll show a follow-up question. Or if it's all, then it's going to mean that all of the conditions have to be met. This is how you do it on an individual question. What you could do now is you can add conditions to entire sections. For example, if you ask your client, did you sell any property this year? And again, these are purely for example's sake. You can add this to anything. You can say, did you incorporate your business? And then if yes, ask those follow-up questions. This is just for example purposes. But if someone says, yes, I sold property, you can ask them then a whole suite of questions that you need from them based off of that information. Here are some examples so that you can have one condition. If you sold property equals yes, then show entire section of property sale questions, which could be 3, 10, 50, 100 questions, however much you want. But instead of having to do a condition on every single question, you can do a condition on the entire section. How do you do that? You create that question, and then you create a section. So if you notice here, this is a section, and then we're going to put same exact way, click the little gear button next to the newly created section, click add, and put the question that you want to control whether or not this entire section will be shown. How do you incorporate this now into your existing organizers? We'd recommend look at the questions that are fairly simple. Oftentimes you might have a question that is yes, no. So very simple. Did you move this year? Constant question people ask from your returning clients. You want to find out, do I need to know this person's address again? It's very simple. This is a finite set of answers, so you can hang a condition on this as well. Another one you can do is look for open-ended questions where you're going to have to ask a follow-up, right? Well, a good way of doing it is look at your organizer and just note down, are there specific questions when, depending on answers, I tend to then follow up with clients? Are there scenarios where I want my preparers to then go dig deeper? Those are perfect scenarios where you can eliminate that admin work. You can just do that follow-up immediately within the organizer. So if you go back to the referral question that we posed here, this is another one of those open-ended questions that you can then ask in different follow-ups based off of what you're asking. So this is a good way to look at your existing organizers and kind of sift through them and see what you can improve to reduce the amount of questions that you're asking. Another one is look for the questions that are kind of grouped to a specific area. There's examples that we point out here. Questions about spouses. Perfect example is returning clients. For your returning clients, you're not going to ask them a million questions, tell me your name and so forth. As soon as you find out somebody's a returning client, you could just hide all those other questions and only show the section of intro to new clients. Rental property, sale of property, cryptocurrency, foreign income. These are just examples again, but we're just trying to highlight and kind of put in your mind what are some great areas where you can do that. Create a section with those questions and then put a condition on the section. In short, your clients will get to answer yes to one question, which can then trigger all those other follow-ups that you would be doing manually. You can add additional layers of logic to this. Here's a perfect example of how you can do this for returning clients. So again, you don't need a separate organizer for them. It's the exact same organizer, but simply add some logic to it. In the beginning, you can ask, have we filed your return before? If they say no, you're going to need to know their address. You don't know basic information from them. But if you did file their return before, you already know their address, but maybe they moved. So then you might want to ask, okay, well, did you move? And if they say, yes, I did move, then you can also show the address section. In this scenario, how you would set this up is go to the address section, click the gear button, and then put the conditions of any, have we filed your return before? No. Or did you move in the past year? Yes. And in either of those scenarios, the client is going to be then asked, give me your address. So here's another kind of walkthrough here. If you notice on the bottom, first off, we added recently a text box, so you can give some intro information to your client. So that's what this little welcome area is. And then simply ask them, the first question is, hey, are you a new returning client? And again, this is simply an example, but if they say, I'm a returning client, you can hide all of those basic questions behind the wall, so to speak. And if someone is a returning client, you could ask those follow-up questions that you do. Walk us through what's changed in your life. And then you can ask those specific questions specifically to your returning clients. And then based off of their answers, you can then route them to different parts of the organizer to get the clarifying information that you need. I hope this is coming through in terms of how powerful this is, how this can be really, really save you time, make your clients' experience better, because this is the same exact thing as them coming into your office and you doing a one-on-one interview with them, except you're not doing it and your client's not driving to your office, they're sitting on their couch. They're not having to bounce between different systems. If they said they're a new client, then all of these different sections can then open up based off of whatever you may need from new clients when you don't have that information to base off of. Let's talk a little bit about how you can improve your intake in general. We get asked this quite a bit in terms of how do I send this to my clients? So number one is you can embed this organizer fully into your sign up process. And we have a whole blog called How to Automate Client Onboarding, where we walk you through exactly how you can do that. So what that looks like is your client clicks sign up on your personalized site. Then you can ask them, hey, let us know what you're interested in. Are you interested in tax, payroll, bookkeeping, whatever it is that you want? And then based off their answers, a new job can get started in your system, which can then fire off the organizer for them. No need to have many different pipelines for the sole purpose of different organizers. You don't need to do that anymore, because now the conditions of who gets what organizer don't have to be there, because the organizers can be self-encompassing with the ability to route within the organizer to whether returning clients or new clients and ask follow-up questions, as we just walked you through. And the benefit of having one organizer is that when things change, tax law changes, additional information that you need to get from them changes, you're constantly going to be adding questions and modifying it. By having one organizer that you continue to improve, so for example, in the last year, PPP questions, COVID questions, you can add them into your one organizer instead of having to update many, many different organizers. The other thing you could do is, again, use reminders. You don't have to be an admin. The system just does it for you. So when you send an organizer, you can indicate reminders on it of how often you want your clients to get pinged, how many times, and they get pinged until the organizer is submitted. Use the embedded document request functionality. You can have a question type of upload. And if it's a file upload question type, when they click that, it's going to show on their computer just their Windows Explorer or their Mac Finder, where they choose the file and then they just give it to you. So it's super intuitive of providing you a document to a question. If you ask them, hey, are you self-employed? You can have a section of conditions based off of self-employed. And then you could also have a file upload where you ask them to upload any 1099s that they've received. See the logic there? You're only going to ask them about 1099s if they're self-employed, as an example. Hi, Mallory. So Mallory is asking, so how do you accommodate a large number of dependents? Just a conditional, do you have an additional dependent to add? So great question, Mallory. We are actually in process of adding in a feature where your client will be able to click add another on their end. So right now, what you described is kind of a workaround, which yes, works that way. And you can maybe have 5 different sections, which all have the same information. But by the end of the year, we hope to have that improvement where your client will be able to click one more. So for example, if they sold 5 rental properties, they can click one more and then an entire section will open. If you have 5 children, they might be able to put that in as well. So where the onus of adding one more and adding one more and adding one more infinitely will be put on the client. So that is something that we're looking to address separately as well. Jeremiah has a question.
Hi, Ilya. Thanks for all your hard work. Love it.
Awesome.
Just looking to, there's another idea that I had that you said I think is in progress, and I was just wondering what an ETA might be on that for the organizer. It's setting a default answer for a question, and we go through a million questions, so it would be nice if the client clicks the default answer that we don't really have to look at it, but if they don't click the default answer, then it pops out and it's shows in a different color.
I'll be honest, I don't remember specifically offhand that, but if there's a specific thread or a specific feature request, let's continue it there so our product team can kind of talk about it there. I'm not ready to answer because I'm not fully sure what we're talking about. But if there's a thread where this is already being discussed, definitely kind of raise it there. Then the more detail you can give to our product team, the better of kind of what you're looking for and why this would be helpful.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, there's a question. Is it possible to copy a section to another to facilitate this? There is not, but again, that sounds like a great feature request. But again, would want to know, why do you want to copy another section? Is it because you have one section now that has all the questions and now you want to make subsections? That's kind of what I'm imagining. But if you could put that in the feature request board, then our organizer product team will be able to see it. Again, we really, really want to know why you're looking to do something. And I know I can sometimes be a little pushy with that in the feature request board, but it's really important for us to understand why you guys want something, because that helps us to make sure that we build exactly what will solve your problem. So there's no ability to copy a section now, but from the sounds of it, it sounds useful. So definitely please put that in. Do you have any organizers for individual setup? So yes, so we are actually, there are templates in your program. So if you go to settings, templates organizers, there's a button called copy to library, and we're in the process of converting all of the templated organizers that we have into having already preset conditions. So all of the things that we just described now, they're either already done or in the process of being converted to conditions to have those sections in there. Additionally, we are also adding a preview button on organizers. So that's also in the works, so that we've heard a lot of times that you want to be able to see what it's going to look like beforehand. So we're working on adding a preview button for you as well. Sunshine is asking, can you mass send an email to clients with an organizer included in the email? Definitely. So what you can do, Sunshine, what we recommend is create, assuming that this is an organizer, let's just say it's your tax clients, just keep it simple. Create a pipeline where in the first stage, you have an automation of an organizer being sent, and then as an automation, and then you can simply start 100 jobs for those clients, just as an example, at once. So you can bulk start those jobs, and they're automatically going to get an email saying, hey, please complete this organizer. So that mass email will get sent on your behalf for you automatically. But the benefit is those jobs will now be trackable in the system for you. So if you have questions on that, I strongly recommend you reach out to our team for a one-on-one session. We'll walk you through exactly how you can set this up within your system. Lori's asking, are these printable for those that don't have email or don't want portal access? The answer is no, not in a direct way. And the answer is that way because if you're putting logic in the organizer, for example, if you have 1,000 questions in your organizer, but maybe there's 10 sections, 100 sections of 10 questions each, just for example, it's going to print 1,000 questions unless you have the logic in there of I answered this, then that. So we could make a way for you to do that, but it's not going to be usable for you because with the printable option, if that makes sense. So if you have somebody that doesn't want to do this, what we'd recommend to do is use the edit a button on your behalf, so you can have a phone interview with a client and just answer for them. So if you click the little edit button, you can then complete it for them, and then it'll walk you through exactly as if it was going to walk them through it. So if you have somebody that doesn't want to do it, maybe an elderly person or somebody that walks in your office, you can just do it on their behalf, and it will automatically save within your system. Lori, great work. Thank you. Is there a date that I should wait to arrive to allow templates to be completed before I start to customize? We'll check with our team, but it should be, we expect, so let's say it's August 17th, I would say by September 1st, all of the ones in the templated library should have conditions set within them. So I look at September 1st as the date for that. Is there a way to condense the amount of space between the lines of the organizer when printing? I don't believe so, but I think there have been some feature requests in there. So Joe, please pipe in there, add in your comments in terms of there have been some feature requests about printing and space there. So please, the more, if you guys want something, make your voice heard. Please talk about it in the feature request board. But Nicole is asking, I had a client say they aren't a fan of the organizer because it had a very TurboTax feel and don't want to go through it. What's the best way to get information, not make them feel like they're filling out TurboTax? So first one is to honestly set expectations. And the expectation is that, hey, TurboTax is a robot. I am your accountant and you're paying me to give you a great tax return. You're not paying me to be your admin. And sure, I can spend 2 hours with you on the phone walking through this, but that's not a good use of your or my time. So I need to get information from you. This is just a great way to aggregate the information together, but you're not paying me to aggregate information, you're paying me to prepare your tax return. In that respect, I would say it's probably more of a communication issue, explaining your value versus that, right? TurboTax is a robot. You're a professional accountant that they hire to do tax planning and make sure their return is optimized. And at the end of the day, I think every business has to make a decision of the kind of clients that you want and what makes sense for you. If you have a client that's going to call you in the middle of the night and so forth, that's not a client that you want. The same way, if you have a client that doesn't want to provide you information in an organized manner, that might also be not a client that you want. So I think that's more just kind of a setting expectations. But what I would say is that the more conditions you can set and the more that you can make the organizer be specific to their specific case, then the more likely they'll be able to do that as well. You're welcome. Rich is asking, is there a way we can quickly see what required question has not answered so they can submit the organizer? I don't know the answers off my head. I think when they click submit, the required questions are automatically highlighted. At least I believe so. They automatically get flagged when someone tries to submit it. And you should be able to do that on your end. Actually, you can override the required questions when you try to submit it. But on the client's then, when they try to submit, it should flag those questions in red or some kind of easily identifiable text, Rich. Okay, subsections for templates. Joseph, that sounds more like a comment than a question, so I'm not quite sure to respond, but yes, I agree. Please, if this is a feature request, please put in the feature request board. If there's a question, I'm happy to address it. Kristen is asking, is there going to be a button added for clients to click when they're finished uploading documents? We jumped the gun on many returns last year and started them without having all the documents. So the answer is twofold, Kristen. The first one is the submit button is theoretically that button. right? So if you have the documents within the document requests within the organizer. So for example, how we mentioned, if somebody has a business asking for 1099s or W-2s and so forth, then when they submit the organizer, that's when you start work. Now, on the flip side, there's also been some feature requests, and I know our product team has been analyzing it, a request to just have a standalone button within their document section. So if you're not using organizers, but you just want it within the documents, essentially a way to have my client notify me that they're done. And that's a separate idea that our team is working on as well outside of organizers, Kristen. Okay, Joseph is asking, can I send and save group bulk email for birthday lists? You can send bulk emails. So you can highlight individual clients and you send them an email through a bulk email. So I think the answer to your question is yes, Joseph. Mark is asking, when a client updates contact information, will the client's contact record be updated? The answer is no. That is a great idea. There is a feature request for that, essentially the ability to link organizer information to contact information. So there is a feature request for that. The answer is no right now, but it's possible in future that they could be. Alrighty. But if you need any help, please reach out to our team. Our support team is here ready to assist you. Again, support and training is always free. You can always schedule one-on-one onboardings and screen sharing sessions. Looks like we're wrapping up here. So again, thank you, everybody.